Just coming around to 6 minutes after 1 o'clock. This is Logan's Lunch from now right the way through until 2 o'clock. And our next guest on the programme, chatting to, we're joined by, let's say, a converted into an author is Barrie Hyde. Barrie, welcome to the show.
Graeme, good afternoon to you. Lovely to be talking to Kirkcaldy.
I'm glad you like it. Now tell me, where are you this morning? Or this afternoon, I should say.
I am in a little village in Bedfordshire, about 12 miles from Milton Keynes, which most people would be able to place on the map.
Okay. And what like's the weather down there?
It's dirty, grey and miserable. Looks like a typical sort of Edinburgh bear is just outside here, actually. It's pretty horrible.
Okay, well, I'll tell you something. It's certainly worse up here. There's no doubt about that, Barrie. Now, I don't want to age you in any particular way, but you're retired.
Well, I hit the magical 6-0 in about 12 days' time, which is quite an interesting thought, because I still feel about 22, actually.
I'll tell you something, you don't look 22, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you, darling. Yes,
I love you too, I know.
Yeah.
Barrie, what decided you to go into writing material at that age?
Well, it's a long story, and for your listeners, Graeme and I have a little bit of history together in that we worked together for many years in a little place called Edinburgh, and I lived there for 9 years, worked for the company for 20 years, moved on to another company down in Milton Keynes, which is why I moved south with my wife and kids screaming, "Why on earth are you moving us down there?" By then the kids were very Scottish and had a very Scottish accent, and so we moved south, and I spent 10 years working for a Milton Keynes-based company before I got the heave-ho at the age of 55. And that is a little bit scary, quite honestly, Graeme, because at the age of 55, suddenly all your friends run for cover, and nobody really wanted to know me. I was a bit like a bloke lost at sea, quite honestly, and I had to find a new way forward. I had a couple of little jobs, which didn't do a lot for me, and I fell into writing. And the reason I fell into writing, I used it as a cathartic response to being put on the scrap heap by my employers. And I started writing a daily diary. And after about 6 months, I'd written about 80,000 words. And the diary basically consisted of my thoughts and feelings post-redundancy, what I was going through emotionally, and what I was going through in terms of trying to find work, etc., etc. And I thought to myself, this is my fortune. I can find my way forward by getting this book published, and all will be well. Only one problem, I couldn't get it published. However, I'd got the bug then to become a writer. So I joined my local writers' circle, and I'm sure you must have one in Kirkcaldy. And for anybody who's ever fancied writing, I would recommend that you join your local writers' group, because it's a great way of learning the craft and being motivated by others who've got a similar interest. And on the back of that, I started writing a lot of short stories. And then I had an idea for a book. And I started writing a novel about 18 months ago. And come May time last year, I basically finished it. Then I had to get it published, or to try and get it published, and I sent it to 69 literary agents and publishers over the next few months, trying to find somebody. It's a very hard industry to get into, because there are so many people who want to be the next J.K. Rowling. Fortunately, I was picked up by a publisher called Safket, and they bring out the book on May the 15th, which is absolutely fantastic. It's called A Higher Authority, and it's the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. And it just does prove, Graeme, that you can teach an old dog new tricks, and an old dog can learn a new career. And to anybody who's in my position, who may have gone through redundancy or is facing it or is facing retirement, there is a way forward. And I'm living proof of that.
Barrie, obviously it's not published as yet, but any sort of feedback you've had on it so far?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've put it through to a lot of friends who have been very kind, but also the great thing about being involved with a writers group is that they're pretty picky people, and we're very honest with each other. And they've been very kind about it as well, and there's been positive feedback. in that respect. And, my publisher has been fantastic and has helped me sort of polish the book ready for publication. A lot of people talk about self-publishing, and maybe that's the way forward. Well, if you can find a publisher, it's much better to work with professionals than it is to try and do it yourself, as it were, because they will give you the final polish that you need to make the thing work.
Barrie, I've got to ask, you mentioned about sending the book off to 69 publishers. How many did you hear from?
Oh, that's a very good question, and that is the soul-destroying part in that I've probably heard from about 15 of them.
Well, that's not bad.
And, well, the ones that wrote back were very kind. They said, thank you very much indeed, but it's not quite for us. But you've got to have a certain amount of tenacity when you've written something like this to keep pushing and not give up. If you believe in the book and people are giving you honest, positive feedback around you, keep pushing to anybody who's listening if you are a writer, because, eventually somebody will say yes. I'm not knocking the publishing industry, because their problem, honestly, is that they get sort of 100, 200 books a week arriving in their in-tray. And with the greatest of respect, it's very difficult for them to pick the next winning formula, if you like, out of the hat. So it's a very difficult conundrum they have. And it's very easy for people to say, well, you missed that one. Oh, yeah, but I'm not surprised with the volume of traffic that they receive.
Barrie, if this proves to be successful, can you see the following this up?
Sorry, Graeme, I didn't quite catch that. Can I see what?
Can you imagine doing a follow-up to this?
Well, I'm actually writing that as we speak. The follow-up, I'm about halfway through it, and I intend, the theory is to make it a trilogy, in fact, and I might even make a fourth out of the trilogy, as in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You never know.
So now you're proving to me how you could never count at work.
How I could never what?
How you could never count at work. You're making 4 books into a trilogy.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. Well, we only worked in the finance industry, didn't we? So.
Well, that's why I had to put that in there.
Yeah, well, counting can never be my greatest strength, but no, it's a lot of fun, and it's wonderful to have an interest like this, and the fact that so many people are being so kind about the book, and to have a future as well, Graeme. As I said, when you're on the scrap heap, a lot of people do fade away, and I think it's so important to find an interest. It doesn't have to be writing, it could be anything. It could be football, it could be community radio. As long as you're doing something that's positive in your life and you've got something to look forward to and focus on every day of the week.
Barrie, let's remind everybody the title of the book and when that's going to be published.
Okay. The book is called A Higher Authority. Would you like a little bit of background as to the story?
Go on then.
Okay, it's about a young Oxford graduate who has a gift for languages. He joins MI5, and about 18 months later, he's seconded to a higher authority. Now, a higher authority is an organization that's funded through government sources from around the world, which nobody would admit to. He's actually codenamed Jonathan and trained at an old British Army camp in Kenya, where he meets and falls in love with Zan, one of his fellow students. The two of them, after training, are asked to join an Italian company called Orlando Marble. Now, Jonathan actually joins the UK operation based in that salubrious place called Slough, where I had the honour of working for about a year. And he joins them as a debt collection specialist. And the company are so impressed with his results that he's asked to go and look at the Italian operation as well. Whilst he's working for them, he finds that they are a cover for drug running and money laundering. He's then kidnapped, he disappears, he's eventually found by his colleagues, and the hunt is on to try and find out exactly who Orlando are, who owns them, and there's a lot of death and destruction along the way. It's a great little yarn